Testing, testing, testing. Just everyone just sent stuff up. Okay. So, all right. First we'll do a catch up. Allow people to join. Where did we get to last time? Right, we'll go from life. Magic. We'll go from magic. Yeah, we'll go from magic. So, quick catch up. We have finished. We have done them. There are 20 of them. That should cover all of your basic generic pantheons, philosophies, ways of life to do with faith. If more are needed, can do more, but for now, that should hopefully cover everybody. So we're going to rapid fire our way through catching up on what have we done since last time, which is basically just the domains. So you've got magic domain, very much inspired by the Arcanist. So you get to pick a spell school, which you get a bonus to your attack rolls and TG from. You get a bonus to you can learn cosmic spells as well as eternal spells, but only a limited number of eternal spells, and you get some extra cantrips. You can cast detect magic at will without expending a spell slot with a casting time of 2 AP, and you get bonuses to abjuration and restoration spells in that they can basically act as a dispel magic. You cosmic repositories, you get some higher level spells to be your arcane domain, your magic, your domain spells, and then finally you can get some spells for free. Moon domain is you get night vision, and you can bestow others night vision for a limited amount of time. You can get a reading of the health of another individual. You can Then power of the new moon was you get to hide in darkness, and if you're hiding in darkness, your allies get an advantage to hiding in darkness, and hiding together in the darkness, they get a small number of barrier points. Waxing moon is basically you can destroy areas of magical darkness, causing it to explode and hurting other people. And then purity of the full moon is you get a number of songs which each have a different benefit. Sea domain, sea, storm, and sun domain work on similar principles. So I'll quickly wildfire through the main bit, which is all of them you get a bonus to your form, a bonus to spells of the appropriate tag, a defensive ability, an extra ability, and then a body ability. So looking at sea, this one is you get swim speed, you can breathe underwater, and you can communicate with animals with a swim speed. You get bonus to what you can learn water spells and treat them as if they're part of your eternal spell list, even if they're not normally. And if your water spell does cold damage, you can apply a slowed condition till the end of the next turn. Your defensive one is you get resistance to cold damage, and as a reaction, when you're hit by an attack, you can effectively turn briefly into water, letting the blow go through you and reducing the damage. Water Weaver is you can basically water bend and whip someone with some water, and you also get a bonus to control water. You get some extra things you can do with it. And then the final thing is you get the element touch template, and you have to pick water, and you get the ability that basically lets you go amorphous and move through other creature spaces, and you can spend hit die to buff your water damage. Storm, it's you get fly speed instead of a swim speed. You don't suffer negative effects of high altitude, instead breathe underwater. You can communicate with animals with a fly speed. You have a bonus in that you know air spells. If it does lightning damage, you can daze a target. If it's thunder damage, you can push a target. Your defensive ability is you get the Hellish Rebuke spell, always prepared. It gains the air tag. You can choose to do thunder or lightning damage. And yep, that's that bit. Your third ability is you get a bonus to control weather. You can cast it once a day without a spell slot for 2 action points, so it's quicker to cast, and you don't need to roll, you can just pick a level of precipitation or wind. Oh no, precipitation and wind. But the duration is decreased, and it doesn't need concentration. After that, you can cast the spell normally using spell slots, at which point it's counted as prepared, but once per short rest or long rest, you can just get a free, let's change the weather to be a bit more stormy. And then Storm Bodies, you get the Elemental Touch template. This time you get the Elemental Touch feature of, for an action, you can basically add lightning to your weapon. And you can spend your hit die on air spells to increase their damage by that amount. Sun is you get fire resistance. You can be near lava. Lava doesn't count as difficult terrain. You've not got the half movement, and you can breathe in the midst of fire without risk of harm. And you can communicate with animals that have fire reduction, resistance, or immunity. And then again, you get fire spells added to your spell list. If you cast a fire spell, you can choose to replace its damage type. If a spell from the Eternal spell list has radiant damage, it gains the fire tag for you. Any spell with the fire tag, you can replace the fire damage with radiant damage, and radiant damage with fire damage. When you cast a spell that does fire damage, you can give the burned condition. Your defensive ability is you can basically blind someone attempting to attack you or an ally. Your third level ability is if you cast a spell with a fire tag, you may reroll 1s for a spell's damage. If it required an attack roll, you can reroll 2s for damage. When casting a spell that does radiant damage, against a target, you have advantage on attack rolls made to cast the spell, and if you cast Healing Word, it kind of explodes a little, just turning you into that even more of the blaster. And then Solar Bodies, you get Element Touched. This time you get Convocation of the Elements, which means you can make an area around you hurt people if they get near you. You also emit an area of light, and in this area of in the well-lit area, you can cause targets to have disadvantage on trait tests to resist your fire spells, and you can spend hit die to increase hit points. I think Air Storm had something similar actually. Oh yeah, for them it was normally the touch of elements would cost you action points. This time it costs you 0 action points if you do the storm one, because you're high enough level. Just add lightning to your weapon. Space domain is you treat spells with the space tag as being part of your spell list. If a spell does force damage, it doesn't specify space because I don't quite know yet what the space tag is going to be attached to entirely. But the important thing here is it does force damage but doesn't move the target. You can choose to basically make it either push a target, pull a target, or send them flying in a shockwave. Weight modification is you can increase your density or decrease it. If you increase it, you're harder to move, but you're slower. If you decrease it, you're easier to move, but also you can move further and faster. Spatial manipulation, teleportation spells have an increased distance, and if you throw a weapon, you can bring it back. Adjust force is you can either increase the damage of an attack, decrease the damage of a weapon attack, or you can increase the damage from falling or decrease it. And then spatial vortex is you can open a rift to either a location you know, at which point it will hurt people around it, but if you jump through the portal, you effectively get a free teleport, or you can open it to the outside, which is just a lot of damage and random teleportation. The sun, we just done. Time is very much the same, so you get time spells. Casting a time spell, if it does damage to the target gets slowed. You get a bonus to initiative equal to your skill bonus. You have advantage on trait tests to resist spells with the time tag or that would bestow the slowed condition, and spells and powers cannot artificially increase or decrease your age or alter the rate of aging. Stasis is basically you can petrify someone for a turn. It's the closest equivalent to Mass Effect stasis I could make. Temporal manipulation is, as an action, you can do an effect to mess with the timeline. You can pick an individual, let them re-roll initiative. From the next battle round, they must use the new roll. You can pick 2 individuals and let them swap their initiative. This takes effect for the next battle round, or you make a hostile target do that, re-roll their initiative, have to use the new roll that takes effect for the next battle round, but they get a chance to resist it. And then Temporal Lord, you slow your aging, and basically you can cause a test to fail or succeed. Travel, you get bonus to your walk speed, you get climb and swim speed. You always recall general layouts of area. Faithful Traveller is your party travel time is always reduced by a third compared to normal. You and a number of individuals can perform an additional activity per time slot during travel, and you and chosen individual perform foraging. You get bonuses to the trait test and get double the amount of supplies, whatever the result you get is. Skilled Planner is if you are exploring or travelling, once per long rest you get to perform one of the inspired actions for free. During the planning phase, if you look at a map, you can remember the route, and you reduce the risk of hostile entities being encountered by 25%, and magical effects cannot cause you to become lost. And you've advantage on trait tests to resist becoming lost. Calm Travels is basically control weather, but you get to control precipitation and temperature instead of wind. Miraculous Travels is basically once you can perform a small ritual, and for the next 24 hours, you and your allies can travel through impassable terrain as it more miraculously try to let you through, such as parting water. Trickery is you get mastery in either deception and stealth. You gain proficiency in deception and stealth, and as an action, you can give someone advantage on a stealth roll. Cunning Illusions is you get Disguise Self, but you can do Disguise Self on yourself at will. You can also choose to target an object or another individual, changing it by the parameters of the spell. The object just has to remain as a similar object. And you can have a number of simultaneous illusions up to half your skill bonus. They Who Walk Unseen is you get the invisibility spell always prepared. While invisible, you have advantage on investigation and skullduggery skill rolls, and you have advantage on knowledge tests to give clues to the answers of riddles. Illusionary Double, as an action, you can create Illusionary Double. You can see through its eyes. It lasts for the next 2 encounters. And you can cast spells from its position. If any attacks would hit it, it immediately dissipates. And then Soul of Trickery, you can avoid the effects of certain curses. You have advantage on trade tests to resist curses, and you can soul bond to one item with the curse tag that doesn't have the parasite tag and ignore the effects of the curse. War Domain is you get the Eternal Strike cantrip. With a buff to that cantrip, you treat martial weapons as a holy symbol for spell casting. If you cast a spell with a casting time of 2 action points that required an attack roll for 1 action point, you can then make a weapon attack, and you can perform somatic components while holding a shield weapon in one or both hands. 6th level you get multi-attack, but multi-attack will also let you go if you cast Eternal Strike. You can make a single melee weapon attack for 0 AP. You get a benefit where allies in 2 meters of you and allies within 2 meters of you gain barrier points equal to the number of individuals in that area. You can reduce your BP to gain a bonus to your attack rolls by the amount you reduce it. And then Avatar of War is you get some resistances, and when attacking with a weapon, you can grant it any weapon focus appropriate for that weapon. The Wild Domain is you can speak with animals and plants. You get primordial spells in much the same way magic did. You get a very minor version of Wild Shape. It's not as good as Wild Shape, but it's still kind of a Wild Shape. You get to pick an element, which you get resistance. You get a small bonus to spells cast with that element tag, and your animal form can replace its attack with the appropriate damage type of the element. And then Primordial Mastery is you can choose 2 customizations for your animal form, and you can cast spells in the animal form. And then customizations is there's only 5. More will be probably made in the future when we get to actually doing World Speaker, because it's how we're going to be making the wild shape more interesting. At which point what this will probably turn into is up there where it goes customization, will go please reference World Speaker. Yep, that's it. That's the Eternalists. That's 20 subclasses in total for that. But that hopefully means we have covered all of the types of Eternal people would want to see. Right. Now that snapshot's out the way, now on to the next thing. So the next thing is sorry, internet's being a little bit weird. Right, so the next thing is we're working on the soul shape. We're going to try and see how far we can get with this during Pride Month, because this is the or as I have been informed, this is the Queer as Hell class. Um, so I quickly managed to get the lore out, the brief bit of kind of intro lore. We've got to this bit. So what I really would like to do today, because if you've never looked at a sorcerer, the Soul Shaped is based off the sorcerer. If you've never looked at the sorcerer is a bit empty of a pure class. It's basically you get spellcasting, you get your subclass at level 1, level 2 you get font of magic, so you can spend sorcery points to regain spell slots. Third level you got meta magic, and then basically you got nothing with the exception of some extra meta magic slash subclass features until level 20, where you got the recovery that just went, yeah, whenever you finish a short rest, gain some sorcery points. Obviously, this is a bit meh. So it is going to be, like Arcanist, a rather in-depth redesign. To be fair, it was always going to be this. It just before it was like, oh, I'm just going to have to change some of the theming, some of the ideas, and it was like, no, you're going to have to do this from scratch. So to describe kind of what we have defined so far, so a soul shaped is an individual that, when the soul was going towards the body during whenever appropriate during the birthing process that occurs, you came into contact with something powerful, like a dragon soul, or part of an eternal, or a masked, or something big, and it altered the very nature of your soul. And so the soul now does not match the body that it has been placed within. And so the body will warp to better reflect the nature of the soul. This is known as a true soul form. Now, there are some times where your true soul form is not due to an incident at birth. Sometimes it could be due to an experiment, or you were exposed to too much magic of a certain kind, or you were drastically cursed, or something like that, and it altered the nature of your soul, and now your soul is changing. Your body is changing to match the soul. So there are lots of different reasons. So what we need to do, what I want to do, at the very minimum, because today is warm, there should be thunder and lightning soon, but for now it is warm. The break has yet to occur. Is I would like to get these bits. So basically, I've come up with the 5 questions. I now need to get the kind of subsidiary questions and the results in their table done. So there are 5 of these. How did your soul come to be altered? How did your soul awaken? What was the reaction to your soul awakening? What was the first change to your form? What does your spell casting look like? We need to... This bit's fine. Obviously, as you can see here, very empty space. We need to kind of work out what to put in it. We need to come up with a Mark of Fate ability. We do have Restoration at the moment. So what this one is you can spend an inspired... You can use your inspired action to expend 1 hit die and then recover a number of soul points equal to the result of your hit die. So yeah, heart form. So one of the key things is you'll hit. So for most of the subclasses, we have kept them similar. For an Eternalist, it's based on the clerics, their domains. Fighter technically changed from martial art type to fighting school, but I think that no one ever referred to it as the Battlemaster archetype. They always referred to it as you're the Battlemaster fighter. So it isn't too drastic a change. The wizard was still your spell school specialization. Arcane tradition, sorry. Bard is still a bardic college. Battle channeler is still the barbarian paths, basically. This is the first major kind of deviation in that instead of a sorceress origin, it is a heart. It is a soul shape's heart, and basically, in effect, instead of going, you are a dragon-blooded sorcerer or a aberrant-blooded sorcerer, you are now a dragon heart soul shaper. And the reason I use dragon is that's the SRD one. In theory, you go like eternal, masked, any suitably powerful entity could, in theory, be a have a warping effect on the soul. So you are referred to as whatever warped your soul, heart, soul shaped. Spellcasting is the same. We need to work out this bit with Cosmic Bolt. What makes their version of Cosmic Bolt different to others? And yeah, that's pretty much all we've got to so far. So I said the first thing I want to do today is just to focus. I said it might not be a long one today, primarily because I really am looking at potentially later doing some FF14. So it will probably be maybe an hour or two of this. We'll take a break. We'll then do some FF14. So yeah, what we want to do is we had the 5 questions. We now need to kind of do the sub questions, the further things to get ideas. 6 inspirational answers for each, with the exception of the final question, which gets 8 answers. And then at the very least, what we have managed to do today is another, yeah, there's a number of attempts. Oh, at least what we have managed to do today is kind of get the thematic introduction that helps you come up with your character done. We then just need to make mechanics. For those who are interested in which hearts I've kind of put out so far, we have Cosmic Heart, Dragon Heart, Icon Heart, Eternal Heart, Legend Heart, Masked Heart, Outsider Heart, Phoenix Heart, Primordial Heart. So we've kind of the elements, a phoenix, a dragon, icons, legendary heroes, Eternals are masked, and outsider. And then you have cosmic, which is just pure magic. I think there are definitely more hearts we can make, but I think that makes a pretty good spread for the introduction. And then, because people have been asking, I'm currently debating. There are two pillars that still need to be put up. There's the warlock and the druid. The problem is I've been kind of putting them off for a bit. I kind of keep saying this with each of them. I keep putting all these classes off because they're all very complicated. For Soul Shaped, it is a lot of, from the ground up, working out how to describe through mechanics your physical form altering over time to better reflect the nature of your soul. With Wild World Speaker, the druid alternative, we have to come up with a wild shape equivalent that is what I want to do for druid is I want a wild shape equivalent that is interesting, unique, and easier to handle than the current published Dungeons and Dragons version, but that still offers choice and flexibility. The other problem is, one thing I wanted to do for druid was to go, you can either choose wild shape or some alternative features. You can kind of do some other things with your natural magic. The other thing is there's a second set of mechanics, which is I really want to make the world speaker I want to lean into the world speaker deals with the elements thing. So you have the outer elements, the inner elements, and the inner elements would each be a subclass to try and control and manage the inner elements. The outer elements I want to be part of the core class. And what I want to enable you to do is that as you grow as a world speaker, you can have affinity for a single element, or you can become, or you can have this narrative affinity for multiple elements, and kind of how to mechanically do that. Quite how I'm going to do it is the problem. I have some ideas. It is very much like when I said with Eternals, I want you to design your Eternal. I want the mechanics to be there that you can design your Eternal, and then that will mechanically theme your entire class. Like, I want that for the world speaker. And it's one of those things where when I get to it, it'll probably be nice and easy. But for now, it's very daunting, so I want to keep procrastinating on doing it. Likewise, the Pact Bound, the Warlock equivalent. There's a lot I want to do. Question is, will it work? And so again, we're in this position where I sit there and I go, how easy or difficult is this going to be? The other two that I want to kind of have as my priorities right now are the martial artist and the specialist, our version of monk and rogue, respectively. Monk, I'm slightly more keen to start because I've had this mechanic bumping around in my head for now and I don't know how I'm going to mechanize it. But what I want to do is make monk is the so of the marshals you have four marshals. We'll say for now you have four marshals. We're not going to count the half casters. You have four core martial classes. You have fighter, rogue, monk, barbarian. Now the fighter we have just made, they are very reliable in combat. You know what they're going to do. They're going to do lots of attacks. They're going to do lots of actions. They have a general control of the battlefield. Battle Channeler, our version of Barbarian, is about seeking that critical hit. A lot of their abilities key off you critting, you doing a whole lot of damage, you letting out this emotion, and then that's it. The rogue, I want to be reliable. There's still going to be that dice rolling action, there's still going to be the sneak attack. But it's like fighter, there's this reliableness to it. I don't want to be quite as crit. All of them should want to crit because all of them like big damage, but it's not like Battle Channeler where it's this thematic unleashing your emotions. Specialist is more calm, more precise. It knows what it wants and when it's going to do it. Martial artist, I want to be that chaotic element. You're not hunting crits, but what you are hunting for is big damage. Um, um, Effectively, what I want you to be able to do so the current plan is you, and this is gonna sound weird, and some people are gonna hate it because it's not at all controllable. But basically, at the start of your turn, you will roll a die. That is how many martial arts combo points you have. You then can perform a number of actions based on your combo points. And whenever you roll maximum damage on a damage die, you get that many combo points, which will then let you combo off again and again and again. And basically, the idea is it's that you want to combo into a combo into a combo, and you can spend your points in the moment to go for the next combo, to go for the next combo, to go for the, you could just keep hitting. Or you could kind of bank your points, save your points, conserve your points to let you potentially get some more interesting moves off. So instead of this kind of key point where it's here is a pool of points, spend it, it's more about The monk wants to attack, they want to maneuver, they want to be in the right place at the right time, because there might be factors that then give them a bonus to their martial art die, which then make it more likely that they will then get combo points to then do a thing. So that's that current thought process. And then there are the half-casters, which is a whole other thing. So I think at the moment, in my head, I want to at least... I might not get soul-shaped finish by the end of Pride Month, but I at least want the ideas that I have for it already in my head onto paper. And then I would think I want to dance between it and martial artist, because for martial artist I also have a lot of ideas. Martial artist, I have a lot of ideas. Too many. That's partially because martial artist is one of the classes that I very... Let's go backwards a little bit. Very early on, because I mainly play casters, so I already had rough concepts for where I wanted to take different casting classes to make them more interesting. But for the martial classes, I have had very little experience. I always, if I go martial, I tend to go martial with a magic bent, which means I'm playing paladin, cleric, artificer, warlock, but with the sword option. What I'm not playing is fighter, rogue, monk. So very early on I was asking friends where are the weak points, and it was then where it was the day I came up with in response to what someone said about fighter, that someone had given something about fighter. I can't remember what the key thing was, and I went, huh. And it occurred to me then what I wanted to do. I think it was they mentioned that in Pathfinder 2 there's this kind of... It's a bit like our combat step die thing, but different. And they were trying to explain it to me. And it was at that point my brain went, hold on a second, we can make this a dance with a start, a middle, and end. We make it a flowchart. And then it occurred to me that you could, for extra attack, instead of the traditional extra attack, which is, okay, you get to attack twice, your boring combat is slightly more interesting because you get to attack twice for a turn, but combat is still boring because you're still going, I attack, I attack, I attack. You just get rolled twice from an attack. What's interesting with the fighter was I went, okay, well, how about instead we just give you more action points and we give you more moves to use those action points on. Then you had martial artist, which was, okay, so how... Actually, it's come out rather interesting because it means there are 4 martial classes. Only one of them actually will ever use extra attack. Only the battle channeler will get extra attack. The half casters get it. The full casters don't. Sorry, the full martials don't, except for battle channeler. Now, it might be that martial artist ends up getting extra attack as a chance of getting to use its... For the 2 action points, they get 2 attacks, which then means they get double the chance to generate combo points to allow them to then perform actions. But yeah, so for warrior, the idea was you would get more action points to do more actions. For martial artist, it was you would only ever really do a set number of actions, but off those actions you would get combo points, which then let you just keep going until you run out. Specialist is different. Specialist is going to be weird. I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to make it work. I know how I want it to work, but I don't know if I'm going to make it work. For those interested, what I want to do is the current rogue is nigh... The current rogue doesn't really have any problems, mechanically speaking. As in, its actual mechanics are very solid. You know, people love evasion. People love uncanny dodge. People love sneak attack. Only problem, the limiting factor of rogue is that rogue is very much, and it'll make sense if I hope it'll make sense when I say this. What I want the specialist to be is that the rogue is a specialist in stealth. And what I mean by that is, if you think about it, your sneak attack is largely dependent by how good a job you do with the stealth skill. A lot of the rogue initially encourages you to stealth wherever possible, to hide, then attack, hide, then attack. Now, the problem is, if you have ever played a stealth-based video game, one, stealth mechanics, rather hard to do well in the first place. Second of all, if you hide to avoid combat. You hide to avoid combat. You will then, if you're encountering someone while hiding, you insta-kill them, drag them into the shadows, keep hiding, and when a fight happens, that means you have been detected or you have broken stealth. You haven't instantly killed someone, and now you're in a firefight. And now you have either to run away, break line of sight, and re-hide, and then continue as you were before, or you continue to fight, at which point you cannot hide because you are fighting. The problem is, mechanically, in a fight, the rogue, one, you can't have insta-kill mechanics. Like, rogue comes up behind, insta-kill, because if it was a one-person RPG, say I was the GM, and I was running a game for someone who was new and they wanted to play a rogue, I could very easily include that mechanic. But the moment you have other players, you hit a problem. Because A, if PvP happens, the character goes, well, I can insta-kill things. It's like, yeah, but you can't do that to PCs. There's a break in verisimilitude. There's also the fact that you can... The nature of RPGs, it isn't a, this is an enemy, therefore you can insta-kill. This is not an enemy, therefore you cannot insta-kill. Video games are very prescribed in the roots. When you can stealth, when you can insta-kill, which you can't do in an RPG. Because it values agency of the player. So you've already got that problem there. So your stealth is effectively hard mode, pacifism stealth. You've got stealth to avoid a fight. And then when a fight happens, one of the rogue's core mechanics is, we want you to stealth. And it's then turns into this horrible thing of, I hide behind the rock. You can't hide behind the rock. Why can't I hide behind the rock? because the guard saw you run behind the rock. There's nowhere for you to move from other than behind the rock. You're still behind the rock in the middle of an open field. It's difficult. And on the one hand, there's a verisimilitude of, I would know you're there. On the other hand, there's the other factor of, if I say no to your stealth, you're locked out of this mechanic. Now, there is the alternative that you can either give yourself, if you get advantage through other means, you can get sneak attack, or if an ally is next to an opponent, you can get sneak attack. But by the very nature of the name sneak attack, we all know what it really means is it wants you to stealth, attack, do a lot of damage, and then stealth again. And by the way I phrased it of the specialist, a rogue is a specialist in sneak, is how I want to try and design it. I don't know how I'm going to design it, but I want to design it like this. When you take the specialist class, you pick one skill to master above all. You may be a master in other skills, but this is the skill that is your specialism. And your specialism will determine what your sneak attack is. And effectively, you can then perform that skill to get your sneak attack. So if you were a dancer, you would say maybe have to do a performance check, and then if your performance was successful, say basically you can keep up the dance moves and the flow of tempo, you then get your sneak attack when you do your sneak attack. Or maybe as a doctor you can make a medicine check to spot a weakness and then stab it. Obviously this does not work for all skills, and some skills you really don't want to go, my turn is you skill stab, you skill stab, you skill stab. So really it turns into a, which skills are a, before battle, if you do this against that target for the entire battle, you have sneak attack. Which skills are, on this turn you need to perform it, then do a sneak attack. And which skills are kind of, yeah, which skills are kind of weird in between us. So that's how I want specialist to kind of work, is you can pick a skill, you then use that skill to give you the ability to then sneak attack and combo someone down. So yeah, that's that. I hope this isn't boring people. I hope this actually sounds interesting, the different discussions of different martial playstyles. But my hope is then that you've kind of got these four very different types. You've got the class that's like, please crit, please crit, please crit. Awesome, I crit, I get to do all the damage all the time. Back to normal. Or the, when you're not critting, you're kind of sat there going, right, I need a tank, I need a tank, I need a tank. Cool, crit, do a load of damage. Tank, tank, tank. You've then got warrior who's all about like flexible. You're adjusting to the battle as it comes. You've then got the specialist who's like, I need to calculate how do I use skill to then allow me to sneak attack, to then allow me to fall back, and then based on the position of battle, do this all again. And then you've got monk who's kind of sat there going, combo, 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 combo. I do think it's interesting. I'm interested to see where it goes. And then there's the spellcasters, which follow an entirely different logical train of thought. In that the spellcasters kind of look at the martials with their very, oh, this is a sensible way to break them up and go, ha 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 ha. In that it largely breaks down on a number of levels, such as which spell list do you use? Which spell list do you use? How do you interact with the spell list? I like to think we have kept them distinct. As I said, doing the thing where Arcanist is a spellcaster that you're a cosmic caster, but you can learn spells through your spell book of all three spell schools. Whereas Bard goes, I can take magic, but it is an optional feature. You have Soul Shaped, who is, I am dedicated, I am the cosmic caster. My cosmic casting leads to a theme of my cosmic casting kind of leads to a theme of the body changing, which then can at times make me kind of a midfielder, backfielder, how I interact with the magic, and also you have magic, which so the sorcerer kind of gets to mess a lot with casting on a very brutal, raw level, whereas the Arcanist is a lot more. You are messing with magic, especially with your subclasses with the spell schools. But the nature of you messing with spells is you prepare to mess with a spell. A soul shaped messes with the spell in the moment based on the heat of battle. Bard kind of does whatever the hell they want and fill this weird niche of they're a cosmic caster if they want to be, but they're also a support caster, so a bit more towards the eternal primordial level. You have World Speaker, which is the pure primordial caster, the only pure primordial caster, but their thing is they don't just get this magic, they also have all this stuff of playing with the elements, playing with wild shape. You then have the Eternalist, who is the pure eternal caster. They get all those spells, but their thing is they're playing with a lot of support mechanics. They're playing with, in the same way as Warlock, they're playing on also a social game with their higher power, doing deeds to earn the notice of their higher power to get more power. And their relationship with their higher power then shapes all their abilities, like what kind of creatures do they interact well with, which ones do they interact badly with, what kind of extra damage can they do. And then you have Warlock, who is largely their entire play style is based on who do they make a pact with. And again, they're playing with the short rests, not as many spells as everyone else, but still a reasonable amount of spells. And they're just kind of playing with the magic system in a very different way to everybody else. And then you have the half-casters, who are weird, and we're not going to talk about them yet, because I don't know what I'm doing with them yet. Though, to be honest, with just the pure casters and the marshals, I like to think this game is coming out very interesting. I think the biggest weirdness of this game is that I was sat there going, oh, it's built off the bones of D&D 5e. We're using the Creative Commons like toolkit to design something, and it's like the further I go down it, the more it's like we have really taken a fork off the code base that is D&D 5e basic rules, and have kind of barreled into a weird eldritch dimension where it was like, oh, this is going to be just this game with some minor tweaks, and then it was like, nah, this thing's becoming its own beast. But it's not a bad thing. Just not what I was expecting when I started this. But so yeah, that's my rambling train of thought of things that we want to develop and our next steps. At some point, I also need to sort out the Scion, but I'm not thinking about that right now. My priorities are soul-shaped martial artists, because I have a rough idea what I'm doing for them mechanically. Mod Speaker Pack Bound Specialist as the next 3 after those 2. And then I'll have to face the Halfcasters. At that point, we probably will do Scion, because then everything except for Halfcasters will be done. We'll have done all the pure casters. We'll have done all of the marshals. It will just be Halfcasters. And then I need to sit down and work out what we're doing for feats. And then I need to sit down and work out what we're doing for spells and rights, because that is the other part we have been neglecting. Also need to write a crafting system so I can write the inventor, but that's a different conversation. That's another case of I've basically come up with it because of all of the incidental rules from other things, but at the same time I'm sat there going, but I just don't want to write it. But when I do write it, it'll be great. It's just I don't want to write it right now. Story of this game's design process. It's which things can I procrastinate into by procrastinating something else. Yeah, it's very weird because I keep sitting there going, I'm not doing too bad on classes. I'm like, actually, I've still got the majority of classes to do. We've luckily done equipment. We're kind of partway through magic. I just need to sort spells and rights. Crafting we need to do, magic items we need to do, downtime system we need to do, other rules we need to do. Then once we have all of that, we can do the GG corner, which is just going to be rules clarifications, rules thoughts, decision-making processes like, do you call a trade test? When does this happen? When does that happen? How to design encounters, how to design this, that, the other, blah, 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 blah. And then the bestiary. Designing the monsters. Yeah, because I've just got to remind myself a second. Hold on. So we've got... Because that's the other thing is I want to run... the first test case for this game is going to be a Strixhaven-inspired game in FF14 setting. So the other thing I've always got to consider is the design I'm doing helping towards that? Because one of the problems with me doing Eternalist is great. At the same token, there aren't really priests in FF14. I mean, I kind of earned it back because we incidentally did make an equivalent of Scholar with the Life Domain. So you could go Life Domain, Eternalist, and play a Scholar instead of an Arcanist. Or you could multi-class. That is entirely possible. Let's have a quick think. Bard is Bard, Dancer is Bard, Red Mage is Bard, Black Mage is Arcanist, Blue Mage is Scion, and that's in a state that we could play it. Who are the mages in FF14? It's Black Mage, Red Mage, Summoner is an Arcanist, Arcanist is an Arcanist, Thaumaturge is an Arcanist. I will do the smart thing because I failed this last time. No, I don't want the subscription, I want the classes. I've already subscribed to this damn game. Here we go. So, magical DPS, Black Mage Thaumaturge, Arcanist, Summoner, and Arcanist, Red Mage, Bard, Blue Mage, Scion. So the magic DPS is there. Bard and Dancer both go to Bard. Machinist should go to Inventor. So currently, Machinist is the only one of the range DPS. We really need, though, you could play a Gunslinger Fighter. Monk we haven't done. Dragoon we haven't done. Ninja we haven't done. Samurai we have done. Reaper we haven't done. White Mage we have not done. Scholar we have done. Astrologian we have done. Sage we have not done. So far I've got 2 for Inventor, 1 for Monk, 2-ish for Specialist, Slayer Paladin. Paladin goes Paladin, Warrior goes Battle Channeler, Dark Knight goes Battle Channeler, Gunbreaker goes Warrior. So currently the only things I don't have you could do is there is 1 tank missing, there are 2 healers missing, a physical range DPS missing, and most of the melee DPS. Soul Shaped won't really fill this gap. Monk will, because Monk will give us Monk. Rogue will give us Ninja kind of dance. So if I prioritize, sorry, I'm just kind of doing some planning in my head. Soul Shaped I still want to do while we've got the ideas in our head. So if we go Soul Shaped, Martial Artist, Specialist. World Speaker would give us White Mage. It would also, in theory, give us Geomancer, which isn't an FF14 class, but it is a thing that exists in FF14. Even though that technically can also be covered by some of our elemental Eternalists at the moment. Give me just a second, I'm actually going to write this down. So, do I prioritise doing Warlock for the final pillar, or do we go to the half-casters? Because what we have left, we have Dragoon, Paladin, Reaper, Sage, Machinist. Paladin, Dragoon, Reaper, Sage, Machinist. So what I could either do is then go Inventor or Paladin. Warlock. Slayer. And then after that is Law, Master, and Ranger. So, just a quick recap of our priorities. So what we're going to do is we currently have Arcanist. Arcanist can play as a Scholar, a Astrologian. Scholar would be a Restoration, Conjuration hybrid. Astrologian would be a Divination, Restoration hybrid. You would also get to play Arcanist, who is just a wizard. You would get to play a Thaumaturge, who is an Evocation Arcanist, With the staff focus, Black Mage is an evocation arcanist with staff focus. Summoner is a conjuration arcanist. Most of these using Spellbook as focus. Battle Channeler can be Warrior choosing Rage or Dark Knight. Bard can be Bard playing the Sky Singer. Lyrebow. There's a specific one I made based off it. They could be Dancer with the Heart Dance, and they could be Red Mage with the College of Warverse. Eternalist could act as a scholar equivalent with a life domain. You could also take the geomancers of the wider of the Far East that you encounter during the Astrologian questline and play them through an Eternalist. In theory, you could also play, because you could play it as one of the tribes, you could technically play an Eternalist to one of the primals. That would be an interesting thing to observe someone trying to play as. Then you have a warrior who would let you play as, is it Queen's Guard? Path of the Queen's Guard for Gunbreaker, and Path of the Gunslinger for Machinist. You would be literally just going, I have a gun. You wouldn't get to do any cool inventions, but you would have a gun. And then you can play Blue Mage using Order of the Azure for Scion, which, while not a complete class, is a good enough class to play in the meantime. I mean, in theory, any of the rest of these, I could just go, you just play the D&D class for now until we design your thing. So Soul Shaped won't give us anything directly, with the exception of just finishing off the magic, and if someone can come up with an excuse for playing a weird magic thing, we can just make them Soul Shaped. Then we'll do Monk, which gives us Monk. It only gives us Monk, but it is another key thing out the way, and I know how I'm going to design it. Rogue would give us, the Specialist, being the Rogue, will give us Rogue Traditional, because technically they do play differently to a Ninja, being more Pirate. You could also do Ninja. We'd probably make that a subclass. Giving you some shadow magic stuff in addition. Would it be elemental magic? Thinking about it. And then you could also theoretically play a dancer, because that is the easiest one. Example using with Specialist of going, I want to specialize in performance. The only key thing there is you wouldn't get any of the special extra MacGuffins, because that was kind of taken over by the Bard, because that's kind of the Bard's thing. So I'd still probably say Dancer is a Bard, but in theory you could use it to also, you could use Rogue to also be a Dancer, just you're more focused on the damage than the support elements, shall we say. Druid would give us White Mage, and again, its element nature would give us access to another way of playing a Geomancer if you wanted to. There isn't really a wild, shapey class in Final Fantasy XIV, so it's mainly the white mage playing with element magic. So then at that point we have one healer, one tank, two DPS, two physical DPS, one range DPS. We'll then go. I'd probably go paladin. I don't know. It'll probably depend which am I more confident in writing, the crafting skill or coming up with a half caster. If I'm more confident with half caster, we'd go paladin because that will give us the paladin and the dragoon. At which point we have those two done. If I'm more confident in crafting, I would do inventor because that would give us an actual machinist who can do cool gadget robot stuff, and it would give us the sage. At which point we have all of the healers covered, all of the physical range DPS covered, because with paladin we'll get all the tanks, but we're still missing a DPS. Then after them we will do warlock, because it's the pillar that will then determine how the half-caster works. But also, in theory, if worst comes to worst, and I don't have the time, once I've done warlock, you can start playing a reaper, even if the slayer would be the better option. Then it's Lordmaster Ranger. The only things that come to mind that will change this priority list. Give me just a second, everyone. Right. The only thing that will make a difference is if because I need to sit down with the players, is if they go, I want to play this, then obviously I'll have to alter the list to get that one done first, because that's actually what someone wants to play. My hope is that they won't, is that based off the people who I'm currently got, the one main's Black Mage, at which point they're covered. And I know they like Dark Knight, which we've also got covered. The one likes Monk, so we would have to do that. The one likes Bard and Dancer, which we've got. Watch them as each of them pick classes that I hadn't written yet. And then I'm like, oh shit. But yes, that's the current plan. I think that will be the plan that we go forward with. Like I said, we're going to write a load of stuff. What it actually turned into was me discussing plans. But, you know, plans are important. Because without a plan, you cannot progress. And in talking through these things, it helps me unpick issues, discover issues that I didn't realize in my future, and go, okay, let's start thinking about that now. There's a whole lot we need to do here, but I think it will be worth it. Let's leave these for now. Let's start just thinking about what we want this class to look like. So my current thought is condensing, is we move meta magic to second level. we move Meta Magic to second level, which then frees up third. We don't use an extra thing for first. I'm just leaving this here because it's a nice, quick, easy choice one if I need it. I'm not sure what we're going to put at third. Thief tends to have one or two abilities, at least one based around resting. So I'll need to consider what rest ability do we want them to have. Sixth is the next subclass. Seventh. So this is part of the problem. Later levels tend to have a lot of feedback onto earlier stuff. Problem is, because what is it currently? It's meta magic. So if I find, where's the sorcerer? There it is. Okay, so at second level, you will get sorcery points equal to your level that you can then spend on getting a spell slot back up to fifth level. Then third level, you would get your meta magic, which we're going to move to second, and you get additional. Yeah, you get 2 meta magic. Third, 1 at 10th, 1 at 17th. We'll probably fudge those a little bit. We'll probably alter those a little bit of when you get them. Yeah, there's not a lot there. Other things we could do. What else can we do? Obviously, 20th level will be something about actually achieving your ultimate physical form. So we're going to give you spell slots, we're going to give you meta magic. Hello. What you have missed currently is nearly an hour and a half of me recapping what it took about half an hour to recap what the Eternalist was. And then it was you've missed about an hour of me discussing everything but the soul shaped as I've kind of waxed lyrical about plans of how we're going to develop the subclasses. About how we're going to develop the classes, sorry. The current plan looking to be, it will be this monk equivalent, rogue equivalent, druid equivalent, then either inventor or paladin, warlock slayer, lawmaster ranger. Slightly dependent on what players pick for that FF14 game I want to do. Soul Shape's going alright at the moment. I was going to do the lore sections, but then I actually decided let's see if looking through it we can come up with any ideas of what we want the class to do. Because as I said, it is very little. It's like second level. You're going to get to second level, you're going to get meta magic, and you're going to get your font of magic. And then we have to kind of work everything else out from there. It's difficult. Um, Effectively, the way. So for Arcanist, the thing was, as I was, because the Arcanist was in a very similar position to this. The Wizard had very little in the way of mechanics. So what I did was I took this concept of school specialization and I enhanced it, increased it for the increased it for the class. So in that instance, you get a minor spell school bonus at first level, or you picked the thing that you went universal, which gave you the you get spell slots back on short rest. And then at second level, we did something a little bit different in that we went, because it was entirely the Arcanist is about how you cast spells. So the second level thing they got was a signature foci. So they could pick one of the spell foci options. And depending on the type of spell foci, if they use it, they get a Benny. And then with that one, how it turned into was as they leveled, they would get more signature foci options, and they also the signature foci they already had, they got an upgrade to, and then they had a lot of abilities and messing with spells based on their spell school specialization. With the Eternalist, it was about more and more into your Eternal's key tenets. And again, you had this choice of pantheon, single deity, philosophy, and as you went, it would upgrade, as would your path of the eternal, which is, did you want weapons? Did you want rituals? It was another one of these things where you pick another option and it expands. So picking an option and expanding it is kind of been our bread and butter thing. It's make a choice, expand your choice, or the choices you have made will develop further. The problem here is meta magic is somewhat limited. There is a choice we are asking you to make. It is your meta magic. Um, so we don't want. There's going to be some development of meta magic because you unlock more meta magic as you progress. The question is that the problem there is you can't really develop it. I have an idea for font of magic based off of a bit of homebrew I did for one character who was playing a wild magic sorcerer. And what I effectively let them do was, as they progressed, they could get back more than fifth level spell slots. They could get higher. And there was a thing where it was like you could do some weird stuff where you could get a spell not on your spell list, but it was random what the spell was. Or you could get a spell higher circle than you can physically cast, but there was a cost. So we could do some stuff like that where basically mechanic for chaos is how I will define it. The main thing we want is this is the weird bit. We're playing with a class that mechanically has very little to it. I can't really say I'm building off the bones. There aren't any bones to build off. There's like 3 sticks in the ground and that's it. And generally, all the casters have a similar thing. Like around 5th level, you get arrest ability. Cool. And then I'm sat there going, okay, well, what does arrest look like for a sorcerer equivalent? They're not a ritual caster, so they can't get any abilities that affect rituals at all. It's going to be interesting. Like I have no problem tapping into, because it is a common thing. Wizards tap into it all. Well, Wizards of the Coast, I should say, tap into it quite a lot, which is a lot of this randomness element. A lot of Wizards of the Coast work with sorcerers have tended to push them towards this chaos element. Problem is, too much chaos can be a problem. Hmm. I'm just thinking in a second. It's finding the balance. It's also just, as I said, it's finding the theme. It's finding the others had a very clear mechanical view, which then transformed into a narrative, whereas this one is kind of we're building it from the narrative to the mechanic. The problem is that can be a bit difficult at times. It's like, well, this is the narrative, this is what we wanted to do. It's just how do we tell that story? How do we tell the story of transforming? I mean, in part, it's got to be told by the subclass. So a design fault that's occurring is what if, as part of every first ability, that you get if you pick a heart, is you every first ability, if you pick a heart, will give you a template or an ancestry. So Dragon Heart will give you Dragon, Dragonborn. Actually, I think we give you the choice Dragonborn or Kobold. Primordial would, for example, give you Element Touched. Mast would give you Mass Touched. Because that will alter your creature type. That's an immediate, like, bam, change. and we don't give you any features. We just go, you are in this template, or you are in this ancestry. Which then will have an impact already. And then perhaps as you go down, so here's the problem. If we go too far, I've got to be careful, because my current thought is, well, what if you have the class? What if we have a class that actually references your subclass? The problem then is every subclass has to be formulaic. You cannot have a subclass that... You cannot have a subclass that deviates from a formula, because otherwise, if, for example, I say level 6 you get a resistance, if, for example, for one class, well, actually, I think you should get it a bit earlier, or you should get a bit later because of the type of damage, or because of the way the abilities are working, it would then break the core class, so I can't make it too formulaic. But I think level 1 going, you can have a language, and you can have a template or ancestry that can impart then. Because then, A, it unlocks the thing, which then means the player then has the option to spend their later level ancestry template points to get more stuff from it, or their feats to get more stuff from it. But what we can do is we can acknowledge that every creature type has certain rules. Ooh. That's a thought. I don't know if that fits the narrative, but that could be interesting. So the narrative of a soul shaped is during the act, the nature of you being born, at some point a soul must enter the body. When that happens, entirely up to the person running the setting and how much they give a damn. But at the point where the soul was heading to your body to go into you, to be you, it came into contact with something very powerful. It could be a god, a devil, a demon, a dragon. Maybe it's a soul of one, maybe it's a living one's power. Something has altered the nature of your soul. At which point, the story of the soul shaped is your soul is not meant for that body. The body and the soul were originally meant for one another, but now who you are inside does not match the shell that you are currently wearing. And the point of the soul shaped is that the body will change to match the soul over time. And that is the story of the soul shaped, is as you get to level 20, you more and more take on elements of your warped nature. Now, how much of that, just because you've touched the soul of a dragon does not mean you'll become a dragonborn or a dragon at the end of it. What it means is you will have draconic traits. The full extent of the nature of the change is up to you, the player. But effectively, the entire point of a soul shaped is your soul and body do not match. The body must now change to match the soul, if that makes sense. Which is where I believe the line that this is the queer class has come about from. It wasn't deliberately intended as an analogue of certain groups' experiences. It just was, I was talking to someone about it and they went, ah, so what you're saying is these people are like trans. Yeah. As you change, the body will change with it. Um, Sometimes you will have your soul change after you have been born. I do give some examples, like maybe you were experimented on, maybe you were next to a magical blast full of a certain kind of energy, maybe you were cursed by something, which then led to a change. But generally, it happens before you were born. But one thing, I don't know if it would fit, but one thing that did occur is what if as you level, I've got to give you other mechanics because mechanically this is a bit weak. It is not as powerful as other classes if this is the only mechanic, but what if certain features gave you the ability to edit parts of your nature? So, for example, a medium level, we'll call it a tier 2, tier 3, somewhere between level 5 and level 15. You could choose to change your creature size category. So you could go from medium to small or large, or small to tiny or medium, or you could remain just the way you are. I mean, one of the narratives I've been running with was someone potentially has a curse that has changed their soul, and the more they use the magic, the more rapidly they change. Um, but I think I would leave that very much up to the player, because if I try to mechanize that, that will get weird. And as I said, to a degree, this narrative will be coming through the subclass. But I'm just wondering if we go, you get an ancestry or a template. You can. If you lean into an ancestry or a template, there are bits you can reference of their generic layout that can then lead into mechanical effect. I guess you leaning into it would maybe be giving you a subclass feature that let you go. You can either refuse to give in or you can give in. If you choose to give in, you get some more template features. If you refuse to give in, if you try to hold back, I don't know. I'm not sure. I guess while I have technically allowed a narrative of you didn't choose this change to happen, but it happened anyway. It The problem is mechanically, if you give an option to lean in or not lean in, you have to give something for if they refuse. But the general theme of this class is not that it's not about fighting a change that you haven't wanted, because the change is more reflecting who you truly are. Like, the idea and the narrative of the class is it's not a bad thing to go through the process, because the end result is you are who you are actually. You are showing the world your truest self, so you don't want to hold it back, which is why I'm a bit odd about the idea of speeding it up. Because if you speed it up, there's then got to be a mechanic of, well, there's got to be a mechanic for speed, which then means there has to be a mechanical effect for not going ahead with it, because you can't just go, well, you either choose to accept it more and gain some template features, or you gain nothing. Um, I think some things like getting to pick your creature size might be cool. Uh, but I'm not sure about. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. It's difficult. It is difficult. Potential. Just gonna note some of these down for a minute. Ooh, actually, that one kind of works. Mm, yeah, that one kind of works. Current thought is you could spend meta magic, or you could spend sorcery points. I shouldn't say meta magic because it's not affecting spells. Um, you can use meta. You can use your sorcery points to temporarily gain the next ability of your subclass early. It'd only last a turn or two. At most, maybe an encounter. But temporarily, you would basically get this buff of whatever the next thing for your subclass is. That could be interesting. And then the other thing, which will be unique to the Soul Shaped, is you'll get 4 tiers of class feature, but then you'll get a technically 5th class subclass feature. But you don't get it through developing the subclass. You get it through just getting to level 20 as a Soul Shaped. And basically it will shape what your level 20 feature is, but to unlock it you have to have unlocked the subclass. It's one thing we've been doing is allowing you to take multiple subclasses. You don't get the full 4 tiers, but you get something. And technically, I'm at the moment allowing it for Soul Shaped, because while on the one hand it sounds messy because you won't get to your full tier 4, you will still get the final penultimate, you'll get the final ultimate form change. You just might not get all the abilities. But what you could then have is like, this is a eternal dragon. It's like you got touched by a dragon god, so you get bits of dragon, bits of eternal. Or maybe you went with a outsider icon, at which point you're getting both of theirs. Or you're going with a masked legend, or a primordial, again, primordial dragon, or a primordial eternal. You're dealing with one of the ones, the wilds, or the storm, or the sea. So yeah, but then it means you would then unlock, when you hit level 20, you'll get a bit of both of their stuff as your form will be kind of a combination of these two things and your original form. I like that. I like that. Oh, yeah, I like that. I think we have some good ideas. But we are nearing 2 hours. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a break. I believe lightning is about to happen, so I'm going to see how I'm going to do some dinner, see how I feel. If feeling up to it, we may do a bit of FF14. We will see. We also might not do any FF14 at all. Because I am tired and I will have work tomorrow, because it will be the first day back after being ill. So much illness. Right. Give me just a second. Just a second. So, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. We will maybe see you later. Catch you all next time. Once, of course, the timer is done.